Welcome to Backstage with Randy Phillips, where I am your host. If you follow me at all, you know I'm now known by Pop, because I'm a grandfather, and it's one of the great joys of my life. But it's not easy. If you're a parent, grandparent, or playing a mentor role to a child, you're going to love getting to know Reggie Joyner and Kristen Ivy and their organization, Orange. The purpose of Orange is to influence those who influence the next generation. Reggie Joyner is the founder and CEO, and Kristen is the president, and together they have changed the landscape of next-gen ministries. As we get ready to jump into today's conversation, if you're enjoying this podcast, and you should be, would you share it on social media and tag us at Life Family Media, or tag me at Randy PCD. We'd love to engage with you there as you help us get this show to the world. But enough of all that. Are you ready? Let's go backstage with Reggie Joyner and Kristen Ivy. You're joining Backstage with Randy Phillips. I am joined by the incredible, incomparable Reggie Joyner and Kristen Ivy. Hello.
Hey, good to see you.
Man, these two folks are amazing. If you know anything about Kids World, you love and appreciate these great people. They've changed the world. You sure changed the world for me.
Wow. Well,
thank you.
I love to be here at this church, and I know that it's one of our favorite stops in Austin, and you guys host all the leaders to show up here to work with kids and teenagers, and we just enjoy it. And I wish everyone could see the space. and here's a secret that nobody knows that they're listening to this. Of all the churches we go to, and I guess everybody's going to hear this, this is the best acoustical church.
Really?
Oh my gosh, it is just unbelievable. And we just love the fact that because you're a true musician, you have built a space that just sounds incredible.
Thank you. Orange.
Mm-hmm.
We all, for those that just don't know what orange is, we know the color. By the way, I love your shirt, Kristen.
Thank you.
It's burnt orange.
Well,
and I like that.
Yeah, I wore it here in Austin, Texas.
Going on right now.
Just don't tell my in-laws or any of my family.
What are they?
I graduated from Baylor.
Sikkim
Bears. And
I have a daughter there.
It's a great institute. We have our homecoming coming up this week. So very excited about that. I won't be wearing this shirt this weekend.
We're going to show the picture.
My parents, though, both went to Texas Tech, which I don't claim publicly.
Guns up.
So, yeah.
love all the textures. So do you have to wear orange? Is it a requirement to wear orange when you're at an orange conference?
No, it's not. I wear orange.
Reggie wears orange every day, unless you aren't right now. Nope, there you go. Every day, Reggie wears a little bit of orange.
Just a splash. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is orange for people that have been on another planet? What's orange?
Go ahead.
It really just represents the concept of the church working together with the home to influence the foundation of faith that a child needs to have a better future. So we use the color yellow to represent the light of the church, the hope of the church, and the color red to represent the heart of the family and the home. And when those two influences are combined, we know that something more vibrant can happen in the life of a child.
I love that. We've been using your curriculum forever, and thank you. You came up with this? This is your idea?
Well, we were sitting at a restaurant one night trying to decide how can we illustrate two combined things that when they work together can make a different kind of impact. And so we had done ministry for families, for over a decade. And, we started North Point Community Church. I got to be a part of the team with Andy. And so when churches started asking us to help them strategically and families started asking us to help them strategically, we said, what's the symbol? And so we decided, we can take two colors and put them together. We couldn't use pink. Breast cancer had pink.
Yeah.
Saving lives. Green, environmentalists. Prince has purple. So we just decided we would use orange, the color. So and it's so interesting. That wasn't really the name of our organization, but it became the thing that everybody knew us by.
Is that right?
Yeah.
This was your brainchild. So you're sitting around a table, you have this epiphany. I believe the Holy Spirit dropped it into you about orange. But was it always in you, Reggie, to have a high investment into families?
I think it was for a number of reasons. One, my mother was adopted, and so there's always been this important part of our life that the church has played in a significant way. And then we also feel like, when we all became parents, that we tend to be random in our approach, not intentional. So we just decided if we could get parents and churches on the same page with a strategy, we could make a different kind of impact. And so we started looking at, all kind of models. And I think in the New Testament, there's a lot that's said about how do we actually, put the fruit of the Spirit in the life of our kids and help them understand that. You go back to Moses, and there's the whole story of Moses when he's trying to make sure that a generation doesn't move past him and disbelieve in God. So there's the leveraging of the 4 times of the day. And so we just started thinking strategically about how can we leverage these principles for the family. And that's kind of how it was born.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. You've changed my church. You've changed my life. You've changed my kids' life.
Wow. We love what we do.
The world owes you a great debt, Reggie Joyner. And I can't speak for the whole world. Well, I can speak for my world.
Well,
thank you. Kristen, how in the world
here we go.
did you, what is this? How did you catch on with him?
Well, I'd been participating in youth ministry really ever since I graduated out of it. And so was volunteering with a number of different churches, went to Baylor, was an education major. And after I graduated, I was going to teach high school. And I met Reggie, and he said, well, why don't you come intern at our church? I said, but I have a real job now. And after interning with Reggie, we just stayed in touch. And every so often, as I was teaching high school, he would say, when are you going to come work for me? And I would kind of joke like, well, when is there going to be a job? So
Yes,
I was teaching.
important.
Yeah, I was teaching high school. I left teaching to go back to seminary and get my MDiv, and that was when I went full time working with Reggie right at the sort of inception of Orange as it kind of is now.
I would refer to her. She doesn't like this, but I would refer to her as one of the co-founders of Orange, because so much of the DNA of our organization comes from the way she thought about teenagers. We launched our curriculum to teenagers actually with her and a team. And then she worked with our family, project, which was actually a box that we would send out to try to engage families every month. And she helped develop that. And so she's played in every role along the way in developing teams and writing. And so she, during the pandemic, became president of Orange. So
My
she's
goodness.
in charge. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Not a great
I guess.
time. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well,
Yes.
there were a few times we tried to say, okay, Kristen, you need to just be in charge just in case. And she said, no, not me. I'm not going to take the ball. And finally we said, no, you got to take it. So she took it.
She's incredibly bright. What do you love about Reggie Joyner?
Oh,
Well, I didn't get the questions ahead of time. I'm just
I wrote that question.
I'm just
okay.
making these up as we go.
He's deeply inspiring. I think especially as you were mentioning earlier, that passion for helping support families and parents and caregivers. I would say that there were many, many things that I appreciate about my training in education and getting ready to be a teacher. But one of the things that I might have missed along the way was just a true emphasis on the importance of supporting caregivers, supporting parents in their parenting.
Yes.
And I think in a lot of professions where you're working with people, it's easy to be jaded or negative, maybe especially about parents.
Yes.
Both in ministry circles and in education circles, that can be true. But when I met Reggie, I think his commitment to saying, no, every parent wants to be a good parent. Every parent is capable of doing something positive in the life of their kid.
Yes.
That commitment and passion really changed a lot of things for me. And I think that probably is one of the things that I don't know. There's
Yeah,
a lot of things I appreciate about
I
Reggie.
will say this, which is fun. She has 3 amazing kids. Her
Oh,
daughter
really?
has just taken off in the theater world, but we were at one stop, and she's teaching her children empathy, and it's so interesting. Her daughter, Hensley, who is 11, looked at me and she said, "Mr. Reggie, you don't have to worry about your future. You've already had it."
You've already had it.
Yeah.
I love
So, I mean,
She meant it as a compassionate comment.
It was. It was.
She's stressed about her future,
Yeah,
and she was trying. Anyway, it didn't work out. It did not.
She's an amazing. I mean, her kids are really, really amazing.
What's her name?
So Sawyer is the oldest. He's 13. Hensley's 11, and then Raleigh is 7.
Oh, I love that. And where do you live? What?
Just north of Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. All right. And you're in Atlanta too.
Yep. Our most of our staff, we have 160 staff, and we probably
My
have
goodness.
about 80% live in the Atlanta area. So
Incredible. Thank you for touching the world. Since COVID or the pandemic, how have you seen the dynamic in families change?
yeah.
Wow. I guess we all kind of changed during the pandemic. It was a good time to reevaluate and reset. I don't know. There's so many different things that jump to my mind. One is, I know in our house and a lot of homes, there was just an increase of time online and time on devices because schooling went online, and that was oftentimes the only way that our kids had to connect. And so just all the conversations around technology engagement for families kind of got amplified as a result of the pandemic. That would be one thing.
Yeah, and we would say, we love to talk about this too, that there was a shift in the way I think an entire generation of parents looked at the world, the polarization of the world, and the trust issues became really, really pretty huge. I mean, when you put together all the tensions that were happening during the pandemic, I think parents were wrestling and have been wrestling with, where do we trust and where do we land and how do we help keep faith alive in our kids?
Yes.
And so we've spent a lot of time actually doing research and figuring out what parents both in the Christian space and outside the Christian space are really wrestling with, because we feel like at this point we're supposed to be good stewards as an organization to help leaders and churches and organizations help parents. So
Yeah.
And you have so much. Don't Miss It. That's a book that you co-wrote.
Yep.
What's Don't Miss It about?
There you go.
Don't miss what?
I think it's the opportunities that you have with your kid at every phase. We like to say that every phase of a kid's life has distinct opportunities that you can leverage to influence their future. So instead of looking at the challenges which are going to be present at every phase, it's helping each parent to recognize there's also this unique window of time where you can influence a 2-year-old in a way that you can't influence, a 6-year-old or a 12-year-old. And so to begin identifying those moments to take advantage of them. It doesn't mean that you have to make every moment count, because that's exhausting.
I love this content. This was actually Kristen's brainchild because of her education background. But to hand parents and to hand the average leader information about a kid at every age helps them have empathy and understand.
Yes.
Because you and I, as 60-plus-year-olds.
Wait, what?
No, I'm just going there. We don't remember what it was like being a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. And it's different now than it was when we were that age. And so to understand the 6 things that are changing, about kids at every phase or age of a kid's life is huge for a parent. I mean, I think that, it's really a study in empathy, and the Phase Project is, and we've designed a unique book for each kid's phase for every parent to use to kind of understand them and journal.
That's outstanding. The power of a grandparent too. I'm in that phase. So do you help address that issue and how a grandparent can be intentional?
Are you looking at me because I'm a grandparent? Is that what you're doing?
No.
Do you have grandkids?
Yes, 2.
I've
Beautiful.
got 6 in the last 7 years. So, I mean, it's
Fruitful.
Stay
frisky, my friend.
Well, it's interesting because for me, the phase material has a brand new life for me because I can read that and understand my grandkids in a way that I think is important for me. Because we're back to, what does it take for me to understand their world enough so that they know they're seen, which is a big piece of this. Kristen talks about this a lot. You know, there's a generation that feels invisible.
Yeah.
And this enables us to see them, right?
Another thing that I know that you're passionate about, Reggie, when it comes to grandparents is really providing a connection between a parent and a grandparent for the sake of that child.
Yep.
I mean, just like getting church leaders and parents on the same page, getting parents and grandparents really to see their relationship as a significant way to impact the child. And in a world where there is so much polarization, just in general, it's easy for there to be generational tensions like never before. And you've been, I think, incredibly helpful in encouraging us to go, hey, let's lean in relationally for the sake of a kid.
We talk about fighting for the heart in relationships, not fighting to win the argument. And I remember something happened to me when I was younger, and one of my children, I will not name which one, we were riding down the road, and she said, "Dad, I think I'm going to vote." And she went the opposite political party than I thought she would go because I had raised her the right way, I thought. And in that moment, I thought, well, we just need to talk about this. And then, as we started talking about it, I thought, well, am I more interested in which political party she votes for, or am I more interested in her relationship with me and her relationship with God? And so I just kind of shifted in my thinking to go, well, I want to understand why, and I want us to listen to each other, and I want to really actually get to know you in this space because it's so important. And I try to tell grandparents, because there is this sense where some of us feel disrespected when our kids disagree with us.
Yes.
And we shouldn't feel disrespected. Disagreement doesn't mean disrespect.
No.
It means they're becoming the independent leaders we taught them to become.
Yes, but they should vote like us. Kristen, where has the church missed it in attaching to the hearts of our kids? The data is not good.
That's a great question.
Of kids graduating and moving away from the church. Where did we miss it?
That is a complex question, isn't it?
It sure is, and that's why I pitched it to you and not Reggie.
Oh yeah, I get you into the intellectual. I saw that. I saw that move.
Well, I definitely don't have the answer.
No,
I
there's
think
not the answer, but
any one of us can have a number of, guesses. In the parent research that we've just done, we did conduct 5 different studies in partnership with Arbor Research Group, and that's compiled into just a report that shows what we've found, and we're still doing some work with focus groups to better understand that. But it does seem like, especially when it comes to supporting parents and caregivers, there's been a gap in the church's ability to really pause our own assumptions long enough to understand people's different experiences of family. And we forget that oftentimes a kid will decide what they think about the church based on how the church sees their parent. And in so many ways, we haven't maybe listened to what kids or a generation is saying about their family and how important family actually is to them.
I love this conversation because it really is about rebuilding trust with parents who may even be listening to this. I think the church has such an important role in the family, and we could talk about the things that I think the church provides for families to have another adult in the life of their kid. We could talk about a strategy. We could talk about all those things. But one of the things that Kristen pushes at, and we'll even do this in our training that we'll do around the country right now, is the critical thinking that exists in a generation when they're asking hard questions and we haven't given them room to wrestle with doubt. And so what does it look like to lean in and to create a culture that's ask, seek, and knock? These are her words. And
Well, they're Jesus. Those are Jesus'
well,
words.
they were Jesus' words, but her perspective on that Sermon on the Mount, thanks for correcting me theologically. But her perspective of that is Jesus stepped into the scene and created an ask, seek, and knock culture. Most of us in church world have a know, assume, and defend culture.
oh, man, that's good.
Is that right?
Yeah, in the Sermon on the Mount, in that passage, when Jesus explains that concept, it really is an expression to say, if you'll have a posture of asking and seeking and knocking, then it's in God's character to respond generously. And if we're made in the image of God, then we are made and designed and wired maybe to respond generously whenever somebody else has a posture of asking and seeking and knocking.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
right after that passage is the piece where Jesus says, he says, wide is the, what is it? Large is the gate and wide is the path, and many enter through it, and that leads to destruction. But small is the gate, narrow is the path that leads to life, and very few find it. And when you put those two in context, it makes us wonder, what if it's that posture of staying open and humble and asking and seeking and knocking that is part of the small gate, the narrow path that leads to life. And I think there is a generation that's going, we're hungry for places where we can feel seen, where we know we belong, and where there is a posture of curiosity and fascination.
This is important. You asked the question, where has the church missed it? I mean, I feel like we really believe in the church or we wouldn't do what we do. Mm-hmm. But Kristen asked this question the other day to leaders. She basically said, when people come to your church, do they leave more afraid or less afraid? Mm-hmm. Because we can follow the wide path, which is look at news media, look at social media. Mm-hmm. They take fear and they use it to market. Or guess what? We can take fascination and curiosity and we can lead with love. Yes. And we can lead with empathy. Yes. And that's a different kind of culture. Mm.
Well, and there's so much in that. You can have a culture of curiosity and fascination when you're confident in having a firm foundation of faith. That's what faith can provide, is that security, that confidence that knows it's okay, if we open our hands a little bit and lean in with curiosity. Yeah. And it's such a demonstration of faith and a confidence in, our Maker if we can lean in with fascination and curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus ends the Sermon on the Mount with that passage, if you listen to what I say and practice doing these things, you'll build your house on a rock. Yes. So there's that whole passage, but he says, so when the winds blow. Mm-hmm. They're going and now the winds have blown.
Oh, man.
They have blown. I mean, you look back in the last 2 or 3 years, and so I think we're getting back to what really matters, turning the volume up on what Jesus said matters. Yep. And let's just do that, and then let's lead each other with respect and be the first to be fascinated with each other. So, but
every year I ask you the same thing when you come to my church. I need a children's pastor. I need a student pastor. I have them. I don't have to ask you this year. Good. I have good ones. Why is there why is leadership so scarce in those areas? Where are our kids not interested in going into that ministry? Where is the gap? What can we do to help bridge it?
Well, it's a little harder right now, even.
It is.
Because they're exhausted leaders right now. And the churches have an identity crisis in a lot of ways. And they're leaders who've given their life to this, and then the pandemic hits, and they're trying to figure out, what does the future look like, and how do we re-engage with what we felt like we were called to do?
There's so many different responses that come to mind. Ministry is really hard work. And I do think one of the things that we've all seen post-pandemic, there was sort of an exit from certain professions, education being also one of those, but ministry, I think, took a hit because it's extremely difficult emotionally. There's a lot that goes into taking your faith and also putting it into, your profession, and so many things connected to that. So I think we are seeing maybe fewer people showing up right now, you would say, which is really difficult. But there is also, I think, the church at large, I don't know, there's an emphasis that maybe we fail to see on children's ministry or on youth ministry. The significant work that's taking place there can get passed over for the more adult ministries. Right. And, preschoolers don't tithe very much by themselves.
That's why churches like this church are so important, Randy. I mean, we need more lead pastors that will not economize on making sure that kids ministry and youth ministry are a priority in the church. Mm-hmm. And I mean, leaders have said that for years, and a lot of well-meaning pastors who've said, oh yes, that matters a lot. But when you look at how they spend their money or how they, steward their facilities. I mean, or how they give it actually space, and it's sometimes not.
Right.
And we think, and we've given our life to this, we think the most important work on the planet is the work that you do with kids and teenagers.
Oh,
And
no doubt.
we think that the church is in a better position than it's ever been to re-engage a generation if they'll start rebuilding trust in a way, and back to the foundation, and starting to make what matters matter.
Oh, I love that. I want to be that leader, Reggie.
You are that leader. I mean,
Well,
you know what? The fact that you will ask every year, I need a children's pastor, a student pastor. And it's not like, if you're listening to this, he's building campuses everywhere. So he's getting more and more and more people into this space. But it matters.
Yeah.
And we
so
just
matters.
need,
It
it
does.
does.
Oh my goodness. What's one of the funniest things you've seen happen at an Orange event?
Oh, that's great. Let me think
Well,
about that.
the funniest thing that came to my mind first was we just had a staff event, and it
Okay.
was just our staff. And one of our actors and writers and good friends of ours put together a reading interpretation
Yeah.
that was in dedication to celebrate our facilities manager. And it is the funniest thing I've seen at an Orange event in a while.
It's all about what you should and should not put in the toilet. And it is, I'm telling you.
Patterned
it was-
after a real email that went out a few years ago.
Yeah,
it was fantastic.
And he dramatized the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like it was a stump speech. I mean, it was
Okay.
like, it was just crazy.
That's not what you were expecting. It's just
No,
the first
no,
thing that
I
came, the
mean,
first thing that came to my mind.
What's the
What did you
funniest thing
think?
you've seen, Reggie?
I have to think about that. Funniest thing I've seen at an Orange conference. Right now we're traveling with a DJ, and our new host is great, and we have some great moments. And I hate to throw this out right now, but the thing that I enjoy the most is that because Randy, you and I go back, and the last session we have this DJ pulling out the hits from 90s WOW worship music.
Am I on there?
And yeah, I'm just saying. And so we actually have all the Gen Zs up in front. So we have all the 21-year-old and younger on the front of the stage while we're singing, while the audience is singing all of these Shout to the Lord. I mean, all the 90s worship songs.
Yeah.
And watching the Gen Z look around and go, where are these coming from?
What is this?
I mean, it's just, it
pretty
is
fun.
it is
It is
pretty
pretty fun.
energetic. It's really fun to watch.
I can't wait to see that. What do you? How many years have you been doing the Orange events?
Oh goodness.
2007 was the
seven,
first. 7 was the first Orange conference.
Yeah, first Orange conference.
Oh, goodness.
2006. When I left North Point, and I thought, well, we're going to really try to make sure that we help churches everywhere. I got in a Jeep, pulling a motorcycle, and I drove all over the country and just stopped at churches that were using our content to go, teach me. What can I learn from you?
Oh, man.
So we just kind of started, and so the next year we kind of went more official with the tour, and then now this is probably the 12th, 13th year of the tour.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
That's out. What do you hope people leave with? I know you've done this for 12, 13 years. When you leave here today, what?
Well, we're talking to the audience that's listening.
Yeah.
The audience that's
what is
listening,
your hope for them?
I think if you're a parent and a grandparent that's listening, don't be afraid of your kids' questions. Make sure that you understand that faith does connect to their future, and that you do need to find a community of faith, because you're going to need other adults in the lives of your kids and teenagers who will say the same thing you would say. And that, you are good enough as a parent, and you are enough, but in a sense, you need others as well. So we would love to say to parents, which I think, and I'm going to toss it to Kristen again when we talk about our Parent Q strategy, we love to say to parents, be the parent you want to be, which means that you have it in you to do this, and you're probably already doing a lot right. We just want to help you dial in what you're doing right and do more of it.
Yeah. And especially also with every volunteer, with every leader who's showing up, they're there because they love kids and they love teenagers, and we want them to walk away knowing like what you do matters, and it probably matters more than you realize. And maybe when you're working in middle school ministry, your middle schoolers haven't thanked you in a while, right? To say, you've really just shaped how I see the future. You've probably made sure that I have, my stuff together one day when I'm an adult. I mean, you don't get a lot from a 12-year-old, but you're making a far bigger impact than you might realize. And so we hope that everybody will walk away inspired to keep going.
Yeah. We'll have volunteers who show up, and we want them to know what's happening in them is more important in some cases than what is actually happening in the ministries they're serving. Because we all know this, that our faith as adults will grow when we're serving and becoming who God designed us to be. So we don't recruit volunteers to fill gaps, to fill spaces. We recruit volunteers because when your adults show up and volunteer for kids and teenagers, it changes the whole church. So,
my goodness. Well, I want to thank you, Reggie. Kristen, I love burnt orange. Would you consider changing
the color? Like
since you're in charge now,
she could. I mean, she
would
could,
you consider changing it from orange to burnt orange?
Yeah.
I would have some pretty upset family members.
All authority of orange is in her hands, so she can change that.
I would have
color.
to contend with my own parents and my in-laws and quite a few people.
That's okay.
It's
they'll
fine.
get over it.
It's fine. Oh, again, I've said it 4 or 5 different ways here today. On behalf of the world, I thank you. On behalf of Christianity, I thank you. On behalf of parents, I thank you. On behalf of grandparents, I've changed. You may not think you've changed the world, but you sure changed the world for me.
Well, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Well, Reggie and Kristen, fantastic. It was so insightful, and thanks for joining our conversation today. You can find more from Reggie and Kristen on their personal websites at reggiejoyner.com or kristenivy.com. Or if you're interested in resources for your family or church, visit them. thinkorange.com or at Orange Leaders on all the socials. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and help spread the word. If you're enjoying the podcast, tag us at Life Family Media on Instagram and Facebook. We'll see you next time.